Brilliant, guys. Well, what we're going to talk to you about today is how yogurt really can change the world. So first of all, I'm Jamie Crummie. I'm one of the co-founders of Too Good To Go, which is a social impact company that fights food waste. We have a mobile app that connects consumers with businesses who have surplus food for sale. And these range anything from your local bakery or cafe through to high street coffee chains, supermarkets, hotels, and even food producers. Consumers simply collect a surprise bag of whatever food is left over from a business and pay a reduced price. We're operating in 16 countries globally and have rescued over 80 million meals from going to waste. But we are more than just a food app. You know, we dream of a planet with no food waste. We want to inspire and empower people to do that together. So we're going to talk a bit about that today, but before long, over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Graham. I am the head of marketing for ME UK. One of our biggest brands that we're delighted to talk to you about today is Onken yogurt.
So before we do, I want to just start off by talking about how big of an issue the problem of food waste actually is. So a third of all food produced ends up being wasted. And this really has profound implications from a financial, social, and environmental perspective. You know, it's costing the global economy nearly $1.2 trillion each year, really on just throwing food away. But socially, you know, there's over 870 million people that go to bed hungry each day, yet there's more than enough food being produced to feed everyone. So here, food waste really is the true injustice. But it's also a huge environmental problem. You know, 8 to 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste. And that's not food production, that's food waste. You know, it's even counts for more greenhouse gas emissions than the entire aviation industry. I can't talk properly. But what that means is that if food waste was a country, you know, it'd be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter after the US and China. Now, what does that mean around date labels? Well, around 10% of all the food that is thrown away in Europe is a result of this confusion around date labels. I mean, nearly 50% of people here in the British public don't know the difference between a use by and a best before date. You know, nearly £500 million worth of food, edible food, is thrown away every single year because it's exceeded its best before date. And this really is something that we need to change. And this is where we talk around and talk about how a small label really can make a big difference. Now, I love doing these types of talks, and it's been about 18 months since I've spoken to a live audience. You know, I'm not going to lie, the Zoom things are really boring quite now. So we're going to play a little bit of a game. Okay, and what the game is going to be is we're going to look through some foods, and I'm going to ask you guys whether it is a use-by date food or a best-before date. And we can actually see whether we actually know the difference between a use-by and best-before. So hands on the head if you think it's a best-before. Hands on your shoulders if you think it's a use-by date. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a clue first. You know, a use-by date is a safety metric, whereas a best-before is a quality guidance one. So if you eat something after a use-by, you know, you're probably going to get a bit sick. But a best-before, you know, your crunchy nut just might not be as crunchy as it once was. So we'll start off with something easy. Meat. Is it a use-by date or a best-before? So hands on the head if you think it's a best-before. Hands on your shoulders if you think it's a use-by date. Okay, a few split. Does it? No, I think we're all 100% right. Yes, it is a use-by date.
Chocolate. What do you think is chocolate?
Hands on the shoulders, best before. No, hands on the head's best before. Hands on the shoulders, use-by date.
Very good. Yogurt. What do we think that one is? A use before or a best by?
So hands on the heads is best before, hands on the shoulders is use-by date.
Okay. It's a bit of confusion there, I think, Jamie.
A little bit of confusion. And the answer is?
It's a best before date.
Hands on heads.
Nice fist bumps there.
Now, cooking oil. Is it a hands on heads or hands on shoulders? Tricked you all, it's neither. It doesn't even need either. But yeah, again, this kind of highlights just how ridiculous date labels are and the amount of confusion that they bring. So in order to address this, we launched a campaign, a global campaign, across several different European markets. A look, smell, taste, don't waste campaign. And what we've done here is we've created a coalition of different food brands to communicate this message that we should use our senses and use our common sense rather than throwing food in the bin. So what these brands are doing is printing the look, smell, taste, don't waste. I'm confusing myself. And printing this label on packets. So it really acts as a behavioral nudge to the consumer. So at the point of throwing that food away, you're reminded to use your senses and empowered to use your common sense rather than needlessly throwing this food in the bin.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. So I'm here to talk to you a bit about why yogurt and why Onken has got involved in this really exciting and inspiring campaign. So Onken is owned by the Emmy Group, and as part of our sustainability strategy, we focus on 3 pillars. The first one is caring for people, the second is caring for our communities, and the third is caring for planet. And that's where food waste comes in, because part of caring for the planet is looking after the way that we deal with our food waste. So, in terms of the commitment to the look, taste, don't waste, we'd actually seen really good success of this campaign in Switzerland. So we were inspired by our colleagues in Switzerland and wanted to bring this to the UK market. So that's why we've got involved, but in terms of why yogurt's so important, it's quite horrifying to know that 9% of all yogurt is actually thrown away, and half of that is thrown away not even with the cartons even opened. And of those 50% of yogurts that's thrown away before they've even been opened, 70% of that is because people thought that they were beyond their best before date. So what we want to do by joining up with Jamie and the rest of the team is to shift the onus away from just consumers. It's not about just expecting consumers to be the people to drive the change. Businesses and brands can also do that by making it really simple for consumers to drive behavioural change. So, we started off saying that yogurt can save the world, and it's a bit of a bold claim. But the reason we made it is because we believe that yogurt is the unsung hero of every fridge. And every saviour, every story where there's a saviour at the end of it needs a hero. Marvin isn't our hero, by the way. That's just rather bad timing on the slides. But yogurt is the sorry, love you, Marvin. Yogurt is the hero, and what we want to do is encourage people to use as much yogurt as they can, and inspire people to really make the most of this unsung hero. The reason we say that is because when we talk to consumers about yogurt and we say, imagine a world where there is no yogurt, you kind of get a bit of a blank look back, like, really? Because yogurt isn't seen as super exciting, it's not as emotionally engaging as talking to them about wine or chocolate. But when you take yogurt away, there's not really much that people want to replace it with. So that's why we see it as an unsung hero. By putting the date label on all of our Onken products across the UK and Ireland, we're getting the date label code into lots and lots of households. We're driving behavioural change. We're making it really easy for people to make a small change. If they have a bit of yogurt left in their pot, we're inspiring them with celebrity influencers, suggesting recipes, how can they use that up, and how can they prevent food waste, which led us back up to why we're working with Jamie. Thanks, Jamie. Oh, and also, sorry, just to say, we're not doing this on our own. Supported by the Department of Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs, there is a whole band of pioneering brands Other yogurt brands are also part of the team, and we're all working together to be part of a coalition who were part of the launch of the campaign that went live early this year.
Amazing. No, and it's great to hear that. And also, I was a big fan of JLS, so Marvin is an apt advocate. But in terms of this campaign, what we really are trying to do is change these attitudes and change these behaviors when it comes to food waste and particularly date labels. So as Laura says, we launched this campaign in January this year. And in just over 5 months, we're already starting to see some of the impact and the people we're reaching. To date, we've had 80+ pieces of press coverage talking about this campaign and really showing the virality around what we're talking about here. In terms of that consumer reach, it's insane to see the amount of people that we can connect to and reach on a very meaningful level within their kitchens. So far, there's just shy of 200 million products in circulation in the UK alone with the look, smell, taste, don't waste messaging. And this in itself is something that we're so proud of. And what we're really striving towards now is getting even more brands to be part of this. So we're talking about yogurts here, but it doesn't just stop with yogurts. We want to be working with brands all across the food sector to hammer home this message that we should be looking, smelling, and tasting food once it's gone beyond its best before date. And the essence here, what I'm trying to say, is that a social movement, an environmental movement, in the context of the climate emergency in which we're in, is really resonating with people and resonating with the press as well. So this isn't just a one-stop flash-in-the-pan campaign. No, far from it. What we want to continue doing is engaging more brands, getting this label printed on more businesses, and working with brands like Onken to activate this campaign in the coming months and coming years, so that we really, really can change these attitudes and change these behaviors when it comes to food waste and date labels. So my ask to all of you is to, I guess, put 2 different hats on. And whether you're here and listening to this talk as a consumer, what can you do to get involved? Well, keep an eye out for the look, smell, taste, don't waste label on food packages on your supermarket trips. But also start thinking about ways in which you can reduce food waste within your own home. Can you use the Too Good To Go app and start rescuing food through our marketplace and food partners? Or as a business, can you look to actually join our coalition of brands, really shaking up our food system and shaking up the way date labels are perceived? Are you wanting to join this movement in fighting food waste and be part of our marketplace? But this here, in this setting in which we're on about disruptive brands and inspiring marketeering, it starts here with a social purpose and an environmental purpose. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll open the floor to any questions if we have time.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Laura. We do have time for questions, and you can ask those questions through the app. So jump on there, ask a question, and I'll share it with these guys. But I've got a question to kick things off. I grew up on a dairy farm, and food pretty much had to walk out of the fridge before we didn't eat it. And then my wife, she's like a city girl, and like at midnight on the use-by date, she's basically, or best before date, she's throwing that thing out. Are you seeing this as changing behavior?
For sure. This is the essence of what we're trying to do, is to change these behaviors and change these attitudes. And so what we're going to start doing is measuring the impact of this campaign. Now, I started off by saying about 50% of the British public don't know the difference between a use-by and a best before. When we're doing these researches and this outreach and these surveys in the coming years, we want to dramatically change this statistic and really flip that on its head so that there is this awareness and there is this understanding.
Okay. Very cool. And for the brands that are in the room, how do they get involved in something like this?
You can just hunt me down. Alternatively, the probably more conventional way is just reach us out through our social channels. I think my email is on that app as well. But yeah, please reach out to us at Too Good To Go. And a big shout out to Onken and the Emmy crew as well.
Perfect.